management concept and what is the project management and the ancillary activities of the project. So please read this subject very carefully and please stay with me and please bear with me this video. And those who are new in this channel, you have to subscribe my channel. You will get lots of new things regarding this. And सबको मैं रिक्वेस्ट कर रहा हूँ कि मेरा वीडियो को लाइक करें, इस वीडियो को लास्ट तक देखें। इस जो सेशन है बहुत अमेजिंग होने वाला है, ठीक है ना। तो हम लोग पहले देखेंगे कि व्हाट आर द प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट कॉन्सेप्ट एंड व्हाट इज प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट। ओके, तो दिस इज ए थ्योरी लेक्चर बेसिकली, बट हाउएवर के थोड़ा सा मैं उसको जो क्रिटिकल आपका जो प्रॉब्लम है वो मैं दिखा दूंगा यहाँ पर। सो प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट इज ए मेथड टू रीच द प्रोजेक्ट ऑब्जेक्टिव्स under the leadership of project manager within allocated time and budget. It can be stated that anybody who has some work to do has a budget, a schedule, has to direct and lead people to do work is de facto a project manager. Okay, इसका मीनिंग यही है कि प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट क्या होता है ना, एक तो कुछ प्रोजेक्ट रहता है, आपका कुछ ऑब्जेक्टिव रहेगा, उसको रीच करना पड़ेगा अंडर द लीडरशिप ऑफ ए प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजर। कोई एक तो मैनेजर रहेगा, उसका अंडर द लीडरशिप आपको काम होगा विद इन एलोकेटेड टाइम। जो आपको टाइम दिया रहेगा, हो सकता है कि 1 साल, हो सकता है कि 2 महीना, हो सकता है कि 6 मंथ्स। तो उसमें क्या होगा, उसमें एन एलोकेटेड बजट हो सकता है कि आपको बजट रहेगा 1 करोड़, हो सकता है कि बजट रहेगा 5 लाख, हो सकता है कि बजट रहेगा 100 रुपीज़। ओके, सो दिस इज द प्रोजेक्ट एंड यू हैव टू कंप्लीट द प्रोजेक्ट अंडर द लीडरशिप ऑफ ए पर्सन हुज नेम इज प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजर एंड विद इन द एलोकेटेड टाइम एंड द बजट वी हैव टू कंप्लीट अबाउट दैट। सो प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट, व्हाई इज इट नीडेड, इसका क्या जरूरत होता है, ठीक है ना। तो प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट गेट्स द जॉब डन ऑन टाइम एंड विद इन स्कोप एंड बजट एंड इट गिव्स बेटर इन्फॉर्मेशन फॉर बेटर डिसीजन मेकिंग। ओके, द स्टेटस इन्फॉर्मेशन फ्रॉम गुड प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट विल परमिट टू आंसर द क्वेश्चंस, आर वी ऑन ट्रैक और आर वी ऑन टारगेट, दैट व्हेयर आर वी नाउ प्रेजेंटली एंड व्हेयर शुड वी बी नाउ एंड व्हेयर आर वी गोइंग एंड व्हेयर शुड वी गो any time, so that corrective actions can be taken and the preventive measures has to be taken. Okay, and then the project management cycle. What is the project management cycle? The project management cycle comprises the lots of phases, that is 1 2 3 4 phases are there. The planning of the project, planning of the project का अंडर में आपको 7 गो आपको जो पॉइंट रहेगा, 7 गो सेक्शन रहता है। दैट इज फर्स्ट ऑफ इज ऑफल दिस दैट इनिशियल प्लानिंग, दैट इज बेसिक प्लानिंग, then the definition of the scope and the quality of the project including deliverables and work packages. I will come to discuss each and everything in this session, so please stay with this video. Okay, so organizing, scheduling, I will come to discuss about the details of the scheduling, staffing, planning and other sources, and budgeting. I will come to the financial management also, and risk management and contractual management, that is contract management cell. And next is the change management. Okay, the change management, and now is the asset management, which is the most important criteria of the planning of a project, that is also under the include of the project management cycle. So next is directing and leading, so that is basically the management skills. And then the controlling the execution of the project, that means control of changes, measurement and evaluation of progress, cost control, corrective actions and project reviews and close out. Okay, and next is that the project phases. So project phases are presenting the main division and the stage of the project. Each phase has a clear start and end with own objectives and the resources. So if you can see that phasing, what is phasing? So if you can see in this screen that phasing means stepwise planning for stepwise control of objectives and resources, and objectives and resources must be planned and directed and controlled for each phase and for the objective as a whole. This requires continuous replanning of the yet undone processes phases, जो आपको जो undone हो चुका है, and then updating of the project overall plan. As the project phases through the various phases, the planning for the last and often more critical phases becomes more and more comprehensive and precise. So यहाँ पर जैसे कैसे लिखा हुआ है that phasing means stepwise planning. Okay, for stepwise control of objectives and resources, and objectives and resources must be planned, directed and controlled for each other and for the project as a whole, all phases together. This requires continuous replanning of yet undone phases and an updating of the project overall plan as a project phases through the various phases, and the planning for the last and often more critical phases becomes more and more comprehensive and precise. सो नेक्स्ट इज दैट मैं बोला था पहले डेलिवरेबल एंड वर्क पैकेजेस के बारे में बात करूँगा, मैं डिटेल्स में बोलेंगे। तो यहाँ पर देखिए डिटेल्स मैं दिखा रहा हूँ, डेलिवरेबल व्हाट इज डेलिवरेबल्स एंड द वर्क पैकेजेस। तो डेलिवरेबल्स आर फाइनल एंड और इंटरमीडिएट प्रोडक्ट ऑफ द प्रोजेक्ट एंड प्रोजेक्ट फेज ऑफ द एक्टिविटीज़। सो यहाँ पर आपको समझ में आ रहा है डेलिवरेबल क्या होता है, क्या होता है ना, जो इंटरमीडिएट प्रोजेक्ट फेजेस हो सकता है और द information or the intermediate product of the project and project phase of the activities. Then the examples of deliverables in case of information system development are, क्या होता है ना एग्जाम्पल, जो डिलीवरेबल का एग्जाम्पल इन केस ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम, बेसिक इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम और व्हाट एवर आई हैव गिवन लेक्चर इन लास्ट, दैट इज मैनेजमेंट इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम एंड दैट आर द सिचुएशन एनालिसिस, इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम प्लानिंग रिपोर्ट्स, सिस्टम स्पेसिफिकेशंस, सिस्टम डिजाइन डॉक्यूमेंटेशन, prototype, system test reports, user manual, etc. So what is the work packages? So work packages are breakdown of the project phase. There is a project or the phase into small manageable and controllable packages, and each work package has a scope, methods, activities, and the deliverables. Deliverables means the intermediate projects. And the examples of work packages in case of information system development are example of information system strategy planning phase. So next is that the determination of the extent to which organizational goals are supported by current information systems. So evaluations of the status of the information systems and the selection of targets are development and preparation of the situation analysis report. Okay, जो अभी जो क्या सिचुएशन है, प्रेजेंट सिचुएशन क्या है, उसका प्रिपरेशन करना. एस्टेब्लिशमेंट ऑफ पॉलिसीज एंड प्रोसीड्योर फॉर इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम्स डेवलपमेंट, पॉलिसीज एंड प्रोसीड्योर फॉर द इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम्स को डेवलप करके उसको एस्टेब्लिश करना, ठीक है ना. Determination of the information system architecture. Information system architecture, I mean the flow chart of the information system which has to be determined to be done to achieve the project target. Okay, then that identification of priorities, dependencies for the development of individual of information system. That means that identification करना पड़ेगा that what are the priorities of the project, top priority presently, and dependency of the development of individual information systems. And then planning individual information system and development projects and review of the information systems planning deliverables and the compilation of information system plan, compilation of everything. So this is the basically the work packages and the level, functions and the phases. What are the levels, what are the functions and phases? So levels is basically the each project involve a certain number of levels, but is usually 5 levels are involved. First of all, this client organization, parent organization, project team, contractor and the external parties. So I mean this client organization is basically the customer of the project deliverables. Parent organization is the employer of the project team. Project team is basically the including the project manager, key project officer, staff working on the project. And then the contractors and suppliers or vendors, basically the executing contractors, and the external parties is social, legal, economic parties involve the trade union, legal courts, banks, etc., etc., because those who are required to give the fund and the political environment you have to clear, and you have to clear the issues related to the land or the companies and related to the collectorate office, etc., the government offices sector, lease sector, etc., etc. That is external parties. What are the functions and the phases? That each level has a specific function at each phase. Work packages, that is responsible, participate, supervise, execute and validate, approve. Okay, and then is that phases, the levels, functions matrix, the phases, levels, function matrix with sub matrices for each function that portrays the organizational integration necessary for successful project management, and it describes the specific function of a particular level at each phase and each work package. So this is as simple as that the phases, levels and function matrices, the sub matrices are there for each function and portrays the organizational integration necessary and for the successful implementation or successful completion of the project or the project management. तो यहाँ पर देखिए phases क्या होता है, जब problem definition and feasibility study, system analysis, system design, system implementation, system installation, and then the levels is that client, parent organization, project team, contractor, external, etc., etc. The problem definition is basically is related to the client, is related to the parent organization. तो यहाँ पर देखिए VAPRE सब क्या होता है, R is the responsible, okay, E is the execute, okay, and then P is the participate, A is for approval, V is for validate, A is for approval, S is for supervise. Okay, so this is the legend basically that possess labels and present matrices. Whatever I have given in this chart, I wrote in the down of the chart. Okay, so यहाँ पर देखिए लिखा हुआ है phases, labels, functions, matrix. So R is basically responsible, P is basically the participant, S is supervise, and E is the execute, V is validate, and A is approve. Okay. So next is this the objective and resources. Objective and resources are that what I want to get with what I can afford. तो objective is that what I want to get. तो यहाँ पर देखिए 6 स्टेप है. That is the what is the scope of the objective, quality of the objectives, the time of the objectives, cost of the objective, profit and relationship. What are the objectives? तो यहाँ पर देखिए first of all the scope is what one is requested or wants to produce deliverables. That is deliverables, that middle phase of the project, that is intermediate objectives, whatever I told earlier. That is what one of the requested to produce deliverables. It is also what one needs to do produce the deliverables. Okay, it is as simple as what is the scope of the objective. And quality. So next is the quality. Quality is this. The quality is a description of how good the deliverable should be, that product quality, and how well the work has to be done to produce the deliverables, and process quality. So time is, what is time? The time is the time allocated to produce the deliverables. In other words, it is how one should progress in time to produce the deliverables on time. Okay, and next is the costs. So cost is basically how much the production of the deliverables will cost. So that is basically the cost of the project management's objectives. Okay, then next is the profit. So what is the profit? Profit is basically is a kind is basically that kind मतलब क्या होता है, that money हो सकता है, knowledge हो सकता है, experience हो सकता है, and amount of profit that one wants to get out of the undertaking of producing the deliverables. So that means the profit. And then next is the relationship. That relationships are a kind of relationships one wants to achieve when producing the deliverables. That is building relationship with customer and building relationship with a partner. So next is the resources. Resources mean what I can afford. Okay, so that is manpower, methods, information, materials, facilities, and finances and relationships. So manpower is basically is the labor one needs for the process of producing the deliverables, and methods is basically that are the methods and techniques needed to enable the production of the deliverables, and information is the information and know-how needed by all to know what has to be done and how and when. Materials and facilities. Materials and facilities are basically all materials, equipment, facilities and supplies needed for the process of producing the deliverables. And the finances is the money needed to support the cost of production of the deliverables. And the relationships are the relationship needed with all the levels to assure optimum output. Okay, and then organization structure and project manager. The organization structure pictures out the way work is divided between the personal groups in the organization, and the organization structure recognizes that is actors, roles, and the organization is units. Okay, so here the meaning of the actors is the persons themselves, and they can have different roles. And roles, the definition of the roles is functions, position of the actors in the organization. And the organizational units means that groups of persons of teams, and the responsibility, authority and the accountability depend very much on the organizational structure. So there is a different kind of organization structure. So most well known and used structures are the hierarchy structure. It is basically the tree structure. It is all known all too. Okay, बिकॉज क्या होता है ना, जो इंजीनियरिंग ग्रेजुएट है, जो बीबीए ग्रेजुएट है, जिसका मैनेजमेंट जिसका अंडर ग्रेजुएट किया है, उसको सब कुछ पता है जो व्हाट इज हायरार्की. हायरार्की बेसिकली इज द ट्री स्ट्रक्चर विथ फॉर्मल रिलेशनशिप and hierarchies of responsibilities, authorities or accountabilities. The project is directed and led by several source of manager or the head of the departments, and this requires basically a very good relationship between the different source of manager and does not provide to the team spirit along the project. So this is basically the project delivery. This is the head, and then ABC and B and also have a 1 2 3, and they have also a one type of quadrant. So B1 B2 B3 are the source resources manager. That is 1 2 3 B1 B2 B3 are resources manager leading each part of the project. Okay, And then the matrix structure, that is the matrix structure. If you can see in the screen, that this is two-dimensional structure with project managers and resources manager. The project manager is responsible for the production of the deliverables on scope, quality, time, within budget, and the resource manager is also responsible for the quality, timely availability of the deliverables manager. And this requires very good relationship between the project and resources manager, but does provide for team spirit along the project. So this is basically the matrix organization, and ABC are the resources manager, A, B, C are the resources manager, and P1, P2 are the project manager. And you have to have a very good relationship with the project manager and the resources manager, but does provide for team spirit along the project. Okay. The network structure. What is the network structure? This is the flat and virtual structure of autonomous actors working together on the deliverables, that is the product or service, and there are no lines of authority or accountability between the actors who are working on the basis of portfolio and contracts. And this requires a very clear, precise definition of tasks and responsibilities and does not provide for team spirit along the project. So network structure का अंदर में क्या होता है? Now this is a flat and virtual structure of the autonomous actors working together on the deliverables, that is the product or the service or the intermediate product, and there are no lines of authority and accountability between the actors who are working on the basis of portfolio or contracts, and this requires a very clear, precise and definition of task and responsibility, does not provide the team spirit of the along the project. So what is the role of project manager? So project manager has to direct and lead the planning and execution of the project for the needs executives, leadership and the management skills. What is the role of resource manager? Resource manager is responsible for who and how to execute the task of the project, and project manager is responsible for what should be done and when. Okay. And then the project manager, what is project manager? Or project manager should be as much as possible a generalist and or as little as possible a specialist. A good project manager has a mission, and he is also people oriented, and he can link the two bosses problems, the matrix structure, and he knows his business. So there is a very good relationship also project manager and the resources manager. Otherwise the target cannot be achieved without any good relationship. So what is project planning then? Okay, that is the next session. So what is project planning and project planning, but why? The following statement illustrates the needs of for planning. If one does not know where one is going, and one may end up at the wrong place, thus one needs to plan his route. So one can only control what has been planned, but one can plan everything. Thus planning is critical for success, but someone should not only plan, execution or control are also critical for success. So planning is a critical success factor in project management. The planning process consists of that 8 things, that is the initial planning, scope and quality, production flow, project organization, scheduling, staffing, planning and other resources, budgeting, risk management and contracting. That one has to plan the project step by step in ever increasing scale, checking with all concerned each step before going to the next. And the project manager is responsible for planning, and in particular he should set up the overall project plan, organize the project, mobilize resources, provide leadership and coordinate efforts, obtain many decisions, lead external contracts, keep the client happy and keep his company happy. And the next is the report on planning. The planning process is a team building process. Participative planning builds team spirit. Why project fails? Project क्या होता है ना, कभी कभी fail हो जाता है, but why? And there are many reasons, so many reasons. So first of all, that is wrong project manager, इसका planning ठीक नहीं होगा. Ineffective project management, no or too little project planning, project phases and levels well not defined, no risk management plan, and employing people with shortcomings in their training. So that is the most important thing nowadays, is because the people has been employed without training or shortcomings in their training, and then they are not a permanent staff or something like that. तो क्या होता है उसमें project fail कर जाता है. And then what is the initial planning on the confirmed company policies and procedure? This can be found in the company's policy and procedures manual, but project manager also be aware of unwritten and yet well-known policies, that is quality first and the customer satisfaction. Then the consider strategies. So consider strategies should be like that. The project manager should develop strategies for his project. So what are the strategies for the client organization? Encourage openness and honesty with the client from the start, and develop clear understanding on the relative importance of scope, quality, schedule and costs, and delegate sufficient authority to the client's counterpart and let him approve or reject important project decisions. And then for the parent organization, insist upon the right to select key project team members, seek for clear and workable projects guidelines, and seek sufficient authority and clear line of accountability. And then for project team, so what will be done? The develop commitment and sense of mission among project team members, and coordinate and reinforce completely good relationship with the client and the parent organization within the project team. Call upon key project team members to assist in problem solving and decision making. Employ a workable set of project management and project planning control tools, and keep changes under control. So this is the thing. And the next is that mobilize, and how to mobilize that project. So mobilize, that is the key personnel, and obtain initial commitments on office spaces, equipment, facilities, and notify company's department of their lateral involvement. So that is the most important thing. And then the prepare a short project outline. So a document including what deliverables, there is the initial middle of the project or the middle product, deliverables does the client require. So when should they be ready, how much should it cost, where the how technology should the deliverables be made and deliverable, and then who will be involved, how many resources and when needed. The document has to be verified with client, parent company, project team, resources manager, etc. So what is the early work plan? Plan the work which does not depend on the complete project plan right away, and this work has generally to do with information gathering. So plan the planning. What are the plan to do for the planning? That is define scope, quality, project organization, schedule, staffing and other resource allocation, budgets and risk. So, and what are the project scope? That is the scope is said what is to be delivered and what work has to be done to obtain what has to be delivered, regardless of how good. It is the products and production flows specification, and deliverables is that to be identified for each phase and function level, and work to be done and work to define the deliverables and work to make the deliverables. So project quality and the what is the product service quality. So product service quality is like that, how good and the good for what deliverables should be, that the intermediate product should be. And then a product or a service has quality when it meets requirement or expectations of the customer, and quality is fitness for use, conformance to requirements, customer satisfaction. And what is the process quality, and how well the work should be performed, and the quality management. ओके सो देन द क्वालिटी मैनेजमेंट का अंदर में क्या होता है? क्वालिटी मैनेजमेंट इसे बहुत बड़ा चीज़ है। इसमें क्या है ना, मैं बताई तो फुल उसमें डिटेल्स पढ़ाना जरूरी है, क्योंकि यहाँ पर क्वालिटी मैनेजमेंट आप नहीं पढ़ाएंगे ना, आप क्या होगा ना, जो बाद में जाकर आपको प्रॉब्लम होता रहेगा। कोई पूछ लेगा व्हाट इज़ द क्वालिटी मैनेजमेंट, रिलायबिलिटी मैनेजमेंट, रिलायबिलिटी इंजीनियरिंग, क्वालिटी इंजीनियरिंग, सो दैट दोज आर द बेसिकली द सेम थिंग। सो क्वालिटी, रिलायबिलिटी, ये सब जो चीज़ है ना, आपको जानना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि आपको पहले से सीखना पड़ेगा, तभी जाकर आपको सुविधा होगा, ठीक है ना। सो इट इज़ ए कॉर्पोरेट बिजनेस स्ट्रेटेजी, बेसिकली द स्ट्रेटेजिक प्लानिंग, providing products and services that completely satisfy both internal and external customers by meeting their implicit and explicit expectations. It requires responsibility from top management, commitment from all members of the organization, and customers focus on continuous quality improvement. So elements of quality management is that quality policy, that should be like that one of the elements of the corporate policy stating the overall quality intention and direction of the organization. What is the quality system? Quality system is basically a documented quality manual, organization structure consisting of purposes, procedures, resources, techniques with the objective to ensure quality in the organization. And the quality assurance. What is quality assurance? All the planned and systematic actions necessary to provide adequate confidence that a product or service will satisfy given requirements or quality. and it is preventive. Quality assurance and what is quality control? So that is if you join an organization, there will be a quality control cell. So what is the quality control? Quality control basically is all the operational techniques and the activities that are used to fulfill the requirement of for quality. It is mentoring of process and the elimination of unsatisfactory performance, and it is detective, corrective, and thus reactive. So then there is a huge session. Okay, so what is the project organization? Just we are not just beginning to the session. Okay, and lots of things are there. So that is the work is breakdown into, that is the phases, work packages, and the task or activities. Phases are the main divisions and the stages of the project, and phases are associated to levels and functions. What is the work packages? Work packages is breakdown of the project phase into manageable, controllable phases of work. And task and activities, is basically the breakdown of the work packages in elementary tasks which can be assigned to workers, and why it is needed. So that is the most important thing, that project organization का क्यों जरूरत होता है. It serves as a checklist to the work to be done, and it permits structures coding of projects, tasks, and activities, and it permits to prepare job description with document in details and the responsibilities in a particular job, including job title, major responsibilities, authority, and the accountability. So project management organization chart क्या होता है? To portray formal lines of the responsibilities and authorities, and what are the procedures? They are basically required to the rules of the game or rules of the project. That is not the game, there is a project. So what are the rules and regulation of the project management or project planning? There is a communication, documentation, control, accounting, personnel, contracting, traveling, and the project manager should be aware about the procedure of the parent organization. And the most important thing, there's change management and the asset management, which is the most important thing nowadays, project planning, rules and regulation. So next is this the scheduling, and I told you that I will discuss in details the scheduling. So scheduling basically the introduction of scheduling का बारे में हम लोग बोलेंगे. The scheduling का definition क्या होता है? Scheduling means putting the project phases and work packages or activities on a time schedule, and it is developed by first considering the sequence and interdependencies of activities, network of activities, disregarding durations, and then only activities duration is entered. So top down and bottom up scheduling. So top down scheduling means defining dates for start and completion of the project by top management, and it focuses on targets derived from the market, example competitive targets. And bottom up scheduling basically means the scheduling activities based on historical data or knowledge, and it is generally conservative. And good scheduling is iterative, that is top down and the bottom up. Okay, and then the milestones. Okay, milestones is basically the important milestones, that is end of the phases, completion of major deliverables have to be mentioned to the schedule for client and or the parent company, the top management and the resource manager. And then the updating the schedule, that projects are subject to change, and therefore the project schedule has to be updated regularly at the end of the phase or work packages. And one should be able to retrieve historical schedule data on completion of the project, the data needed for scheduling other projects. Then what is the bar chart? So bar chart is basically the traditional method of scheduling, is the construction of a diagram in which activities are plotted against a time scale. This diagram is called bar chart. And however, bar chart have limitations, and it is not possible to judge effect of delays, no dependency of activities, difficult to update, and the bar chart is only good for final presentation for to executive. Therefore, the need of other scheduling methods like networking plan, that is CPM, and PART, that is the PART CPM हम लोग बोलते हैं project planning में. There is a critical path method. So first we will discuss the critical path methods, and then we will go to the PART. Okay. The critical path method is basically a diagrammatic method to express in a logical form the interconnected relationship of activities, including in carrying out a project. So activities used in CPM critical path method is basically, this is the activity you can see here, that is the A. यहाँ पर देख रहा है आपको A, यहाँ पर एक तीर मार दिया, ठीक है ना, the arrow जो दिखाई दे रहा है. So is represented by an arrow. The head of the arrow indicates where the activity ends, the activity code is given to the arrow, and activity consumes times and the resources. So what is the event? An event is a point in time where activities start and finish, एंड इट इज़ रिप्रेजेंटेड बाय ए नोड। सो यहाँ पर जो है नोड दिखाई दे रहा है आपको, यहाँ पर नोड, तो यहाँ पर एक्टिविटीज जो आपका स्टार्ट हो रहा है और जो फिनिश जो हो रहा है उसको रिप्रेजेंट करता है, ठीक है ना। एंड द डमी एक्टिविटीज क्या होता है ना, डॉटेड एरोस which is dependent, it is not an activity, does not consume time nor resources, but is used to show clear logical dependency between the some activities। तो हो सकता है कि इसके साथ रिलेशनशिप था, हो सकता है कि नहीं था, ऐसा करके दिखाई देता है। तो लॉजिकल रिलेशनशिप क्या होता है, तो यहाँ पर देखो व्हाट इज द लॉजिकल रिलेशनशिप। टू और मोर एक्टिविटीज कैन स्टार्ट फ्रॉम एन इवेंट, दिट इज नोन टू ऑल दैट मे बी स्टार्टेड also from the project initiation event. An activity cannot start until the event producing in as it has occurred, and an event cannot occur until all the activities leading to it are completed. Okay, then making a network, how to network make। so यहाँ पर जो मैं बोला था पहले कैसे नेटवर्क बनाएंगे वो भी मैं दिखा दूंगा। तो लिस्ट ऑल द एक्टिविटीज, आपको क्या एक्टिविटीज है, डेवलप द लॉजिक, व्हिच एक्टिविटीज प्रोसीड्स and which activity starts simultaneously and which activity follows। so prepare a network activity table or diagram and then add estimate of duration for each activity and calculate EFT, that is basically EET first, that is earliest event time, go forward, and then compute LET, that is the latest event time, go backward। okay, so then the compute event slacks or activity floats। The event slack is basically the difference between EET and LET। so there is the earlier event and the late event at event, this is the period of time within which the event must occur if the completion date of the project is not to be affected। so activity float is that LET head minus EET tail minus duration of the activity। so this is a spare time for delaying and the activity without that the completion of the project be affected। so this is the thing, and the most important criteria is the definition of the critical path, the sequence of activities which no floats connecting events with the no slacks। okay, so that is basically the critical path diagram। I will discuss you more in the next session, as because one session will be there for only for the critical path method or critical path diagram and the part। okay, सो यहाँ पर जो देखिए एग्जांपल ऑफ नेटवर्क एनालिसिस ऑफ ए सिंपल कंस्ट्रक्शन ए बी सी डी ई एफ ई एफ जी ए इज द इंस्टॉल ब्लॉक बी सी डी ई एफ जी एच, द प्रोसेसर कोड इज ए बी 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 एंड सी ई। ये देखिए ना, सी डी ई से बी कनेक्ट हो रहा है, सी डी ई से बी कनेक्ट हो रहा है, ठीक है ना, सी डी ई से बी कनेक्ट हो रहा है। अब सी से एफ से क्या हो रहा है ना, सी हो रहा है, जी से डी हो रहा है, एच से ई हो रहा है, ऐसा करके आपको ड्यूरेशन बता दे रहा है, ठीक है ना। तो दिस इज द नेटवर्क एनालिसिस। ओके, एंड देन डेवलप द लॉजिक। वो लॉजिक क्या होता है, दैट ऐड ड्यूरेशन, यहाँ पर जो ड्यूरेशन देंगे और 1 2 3 3 से 4 5 6 डिवाइड हो रहा है, लास्ट में अंत में जाकर 7 में मील हो रहा है, ठीक है ना। तो क्या होगा वहाँ पर, यहाँ पर देखिए ऐड ड्यूरेशन हो रहा है, एक दिन टाइम लगा, 2.5 डेज लगा, 2.5 डेज लगा, 2 दिन लगा, 4 दिन लगा, 1.5 डेज लगा, 0.7 डेज लगा, एक दिन लगा। सो ऐसा करके आपको कॉम्पूट ईटी वाला अर्लियर टाइम फिनिश क्या होता है, 0 1 दिन में 3.5 में हो रहा है, 5.5 5 7.5 8.5 में हो रहा है, और अर्लीस्ट इवेंट टाइम हो गया। एंड देन द एलईडी गो बैकवर्ड क्या होता है, 0 1 दिया, यहाँ पर 3.5 दिया, नीचे वाला 7 दिया, 7.8 दिया, 7.5 दिया, 8.5, यहाँ पर ऐसा करके आपको दिखाई दे रहा है। दैट इज फॉर एग्जाम्पल। ओके, सो डिफाइन क्रिटिकल पाथ। सो द क्रिटिकल पाथ इज ए सीक्वेंस ऑफ एक्टिविटीज which no floats and which connects events with no slack. This is the longest time path throughout the project, and any overrun on this path will immediately affect the project completion date. So that is the basically definition of the critical path. So this is the bar chart, basically it's been given that is activity A B C D E F G H का है, duration है, हो सकता है कि जो 1 साल 2.5 साल 2 साल 1.5 साल 4 साल 1.5 साल 0.7 साल 1 साल का। स्टार्ट हुआ है 0 में, 1 हुआ है, फिनिश एक महीना लगा, इसमें 2.5 मंथ्स लगा। फिर स्टार्ट हुआ है यहाँ पर 2.5, जैसे कि फरवरी से स्टार्ट हुआ, अप्रैल में जाकर लगा से 2.5। ओके, वहाँ अप्रैल से स्टार्ट हुआ, यहाँ पर लगा टोटल 2 महीना, यहाँ पर देखिए यहाँ पर 1 महीना है हुआ है, यहाँ पर मिडिल में 1 महीना, ऐसा करके दिया हुआ है। इट इज़ वेरी ईजी। ओके, द प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट टूल फॉर द माइक्रोसॉफ्ट प्रोजेक्ट, एंड इसका मैं दिखा दूंगा आप लोगों को बाद में। जो माइक्रोसॉफ्ट प्रोजेक्ट से क्या होता है ना, विजुअल बेसिक, मैक्रो से आपको विजुअल बेसिक आता है। माइक्रोसॉफ्ट प्रोजेक्ट मीन्स प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट टूल विच इज बेसिकली, और आपका जो आपको ये एक्सेल जो है ना, एक्सेल से आपको मैक्रो से विजुअल बेसिक में आपको प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट किया था माइक्रोसॉफ्ट प्रोजेक्ट. So several software packages are supporting critical path method for ease of scheduling activities, but also for putting resources on the schedule and even for computing costs. So Microsoft Project is one of those software packages and which will used in the case study related to this subject. And what is staffing? So staffing is basically a golden rule of staffing a project. Staff a project with the right people and the right number of people at the right time, but it is generally not an easy task. The staffing requirements have to be derived from the schedule of activities, that is bar chart, and with the total requirements on resources is equal to the activities main unit, that is hours, days, budget. And in a matrix structure environment, the project manager is depending upon the resources managers to assign staff to the project, and staff is assigned to project activities. So upon request from the project manager by the resources manager, and special consideration is that the agency personnel preferably not be the assigned to the supervisory manager tell, okay, supervisory manager or managerial activities what he is telling. So it is depends on the, there is a, then the client personnel, that client personnel is basically the delegate arrangement which can have positive or but also a negative consequences. Then the emergency plan have a number 2 in case of number 1 is suddenly not available or reassigned to other tasks. And the productive availability, so productive man unit of work differ from official work time, illness, copy time, days just before and just after vacation. So task duration and manpower assignment, an example. So manpower estimate is like 1000 man hours, and manpower estimate per man week is 25 with 40 hours per week में आपको काम हो रहा है. तो इस 40 hours पर वीक मतलब क्या, जो 2 दिन छुट्टी है सैटरडे संडे, ठीक है ना, उसमें क्या होता है सोमवार से बृहस्पतिवार तो 5 days है, 8 घंटा ड्यूटी है, तो 5 into 8 that is 40 hours. So average is for personal 4 and average duration is 6.25 weeks and scheduled duration is 7 week. तो ऐसा करके क्या होता है ना, मैन पावर शेड्यूल किया जाता है. उसके बाद स्टाफ देखिए, यहाँ पर स्टाफ को शेड्यूल किया जाता है, 4 को आदमी का नाम दे दिया, वहाँ से आपको स्टाफ शेड्यूल किया, टोटल 7, टोटल 6, टोटल 5, द मैन पावर असाइनमेंट हुआ है ये, ठीक है ना. दैट इज बेसिकली द मैन पावर मैनेजमेंट. And scheduling other resources, the availability of all resources essentially to the project needs to be assured and properly planned as for the staff. And equipment and material data, this category of resources includes all materials, data, equipment and tools required for the project, and these sources can be internal and already available in the parent organization, and they have to be obtained from the resources manager on request to the project manager. Okay, and then the external is basically obtained from a party outside the parent company, and the external party can be the client himself and or the subcontractor. The resources have to be obtained to the basis of a contract. What is the cash flow? Cash flow deals with the availability of funds when they are needed. One has to consider costs committed and invoices payment due, and this is illustrated in table 4. Therefore in KNLG and the contractual holdback of 10%, and the good cash flow management can save the lot of money by using available cash to product interest until it is needed. तो क्या है ना, कैश फ्लो का बारे में मैं तो सेशन अलग करके करेंगे. जो व्हाट इज द डिस्काउंटेड कैश फ्लो, उसमें हम अलग करके बता देंगे हम. IRR, व्हाट इज इंटरनल रेट ऑफ रिटर्न, कैसे वो हो रहा है, ठीक है ना. The facilities is that the category includes the office space, office equipment, transportation and telecommunication. And then the next is the budgeting. Okay, so what is the introduction of budgeting and what is budgeting? The budget is an estimate of monetary resources needed for the execution of a project, and the budget is a project team estimate, and the project manager is responsible and accountable for it. And the budget estimation is based on information on local rates and economic conditions and the experience in guessing and references historical data and the estimation of calculation methods. And the next is this, that cost structure. So यहाँ पर देखिए कॉस्ट स्ट्रक्चर को तीनों, पहले टोटल कॉस्ट जो है उसको तीनों सेक्शन में डिवाइड किया जाता है. द डायरेक्ट कॉस्ट, इनडायरेक्ट कॉस्ट एंड अदर कॉस्ट. So डायरेक्ट कॉस्ट कैन बी डिवाइडेड इन 7 phases, that is labor cost, travel cost, consultancy cost, subcontracting cost, equipment cost, data cost, material cost. Indirect cost is like that: general overhead cost, general operational cost, staff development and the profit. And others cost can be divided in 3 sections, that is inflation, contingency and the taxes. And the direct cost, the what is the labor cost, that is the units estimates, that how many units, month, day, hour or staff work are needed to perform the task. And the unit rates, and how much cost a unit of staff work, including overhead, the social security premium paid by the employer. What is the travels, including ticket fares and daily subsistence allowances, additional fees for travel abroad and in case of risk. And subcontracting can be based on a lump sum, a fixed sum of money agreed upon in advance, and whatever the project will request more or less effort costs than expected. And per unit, the costs are proportional to the realized effort. The consultancy, the units estimate the same as for labor, and unit fee is the same as for labor, and travels is also the same as for the travels. The equipment cost, units estimates, that is how many units, month, day, labor of equipment work are needed to perform the task. And then unit rates, that how much cost a unit of equipment work. The cost of a unit of equipment work is based on the number of hours and equipment is as per the day, that is 8 hours, 16 hours, 24 hours. And the period of equipment payoff, that is 3 years or 5 years, and should include maintenance cost, that is 10% of the capital investment per year of the hardware and 20% of the capital investment per year for software. So data is basically the based on quantities used and the rates, and material is based on the quantities used and the rates. So next is this, that is the indirect cost. Indirect cost basically general overhead cost, that is non-productive organization cost, that is administrative cost, building maintenance cost, etc. And the project's operational cost is like the telephone, fax, copies, reproduction, small tools and small material. The staff development is basically the training fees charged for the training, and the travel costs, including the ticket fares, daily subsistence allowance, and the additional fees for travel abroad. And the lost production, basically the staff member on training is not productive for his organization during the training period, and the staff unit rate should be added to the staff development cost. And the profit is basically calculated as percentage of the revenue, and it is decided by the company executives and can vary by project, and profit can easily be wiped out by the budget overrun. So those are the basic things, and the other costs are there, that is the inflation. Inflation is basically the long duration project, and yearly budgets should be corrected from the inflation rate, and inflation has an effect on the budget, especially on the late procurements and the unit rates. And what is contingency? Contingency is basically the budget item to cover unforeseeable cost. Contingency is calculated as the percentage of total cost, and use contingency can only be made on the basis of the well documented request, and taxes is value added tax and the import tax nowadays, that is the GST. Okay, so risk and management. What is risk management? So risk management is basically that the most important thing, that each project from inception to termination in subject to certain risk. The risk management is a management technique for the assessment of risk factor and the identification of actions to reduce the effects on the project. The objective of the risk analysis is to assess the presence of severity of one or more risk and the cumulative effects they have on each other. The objective of risk management is the containment of risk or these risks, and there exist different type of risk, but most frequent ones have to do with, that is the quality risk, that is mean product functionality, performance, error, maintenance, use, financial risks, basically time, budget and the cash flow. Then what is the risk assessment? Risk assessment includes the identification of risk, define what kind of risks are involved in decision making and the project execution and their importance, that is basically in the words. And then the example is the risk factors, that is the system will be delivered too late, development will exceed budget and system will meet the standard. And the risk importance, basically that 10 easy to overcome and 100 system cannot be used. The analysis of the project to formulate the critical questions. So example is that questions related to, there is the system of objectives and the project organization, project matrices, user involvement and implementation, installation, operations, and the identification of the effects of the answer on each of the risk and risk score for each of the risk factors. So R is equal to 0, that is a no contribution of risk factors. R is equal to 5, that high contribution of 2 risk factors. And each, in addition to the effect of the answer on each of the risk, the following factors should be the considered too, that is the manageability of the answer, that is MM, what is basically the easy of manage to elimination of the risk, and MAP, that is the elimination of the risk, it requires normal management, and MP, that is the elimination of risks that are difficult to manage. So that is the urgency indicator. The U is equal to 1, risk management is not urgent, and U is equal to 5, that is the risk management is urgent. And what is the risk matrices or risk factor matrices? So risk factor matrix is basically the based upon the identification of the risk, on the identification of the effects on the answers to the formulated questions on each of the risk, and a risk factor matrix is derived. Risk factor matrix contains information on the effect of the answer to particular question on the particular risk, on the manageability and the urgency of the risk. So that is the risk factor. There is the manageability and the urgency. A risk factor has been divided in R1, R2, R3, R4. So that is basically, I will give you the details of the risk factor matrix. You can learn just basic things, okay, because that is not the risk assessment. Risk assessment can be done through statistical analysis or multivariate statistical analysis through adjusted odds ratio or the crude odds ratio, so that you will directly get that the score or the risk score is basically likelihood into severity in the consequences. There is a 3 multiplication of the 3 things: likelihood, severity and the consequences. You will get the risk scores. So based upon the informal information content in the risk factor matrix, and actual risk scores matrix is created. The actual risk scores matrix summarizes the findings of the answers and the questions of the risk, and using the actual risk score matrices, a number of actions can be defined in the avoided to the actual risk matrices. So objective derived from policy, yes or no. Implement offices involved more or less. Experts use only one internal ones, and project manager influence indirect, team adequate and limited. Those are the basically the actual risk score matrix, how to calculate. And the determination of total risk is basically the sum of the R1 into WR2 and sum of the R2 into WR2 in the R1 into WR1, R2 into WR2, ऐसा करके आपको करना पड़ेगा, ठीक है ना. तो this is the thing, and there is a total risk, determination of the most of the critical risk factor, and indication of the kind management needed to contain the risk, and indication of the urgency of action to contain the risk. So risk containment is concerned with the determination of actions of contains the risk, and it generates a list of recommendation allowing appropriate actions to be taken to the right people as iterative. So what is project directing and leading? So definition is that the directing is leading the team is planned direction at a planned speed, and leading is leading the team so that everyone perform at this his or her best. And the directing leading requires activities and leadership management skill. So balancing skill is basically the directing and leading requires a good balance of executive leadership and management skill. Management skill is basically the management is formal, focusing on techniques and tool for scheduling, budgeting, controlling. And the leadership skills are needed to create the will to work and to elicit teamwork and to keep people motivated, and it involves actions on staffing, training, motivation, empathy and communication. And 4 style of leaderships can be considered depending on the subordinate maturity. And the delegating, high maturity required, the manager permits subordinates to function independently within fixed limits. And the participating is basically the average to high maturity required, the manager presents problems and gets suggestions and take decision. Selling is basically the average to low maturity required, and the manager sells decision. And telling, basically the low maturity required, the manager takes decision and announcing them. Executive skills, which is most important, executive skills are needed to incorporate the factors from the big pictures and the factors external to the project but that can be influence the project. And in management leadership, balancing skill, strong management without leadership in static and bureaucratic, leadership without management is volatile and out of target, and management and leadership without executive skill can put a project or in isolation from the external factors and lead to failure. What is the time management? Okay, so time management is basically the one of the scarcest resources of the project manager. Therefore, it should be reserved to do important things. Important versus the urgent task. You can see the graph. That important task is basically the task that will have a large effect of the project. That is scheduling, staffing, budgeting, and controlling. And therefore, a large amount of time should be reserved for this task. And urgent tasks are tasks that needed to be done almost immediately, but they are not necessarily important. Therefore, a limited amount of time should be regularly reserved for this task. And the time spent, be busy from the important things. So hereby you can see that is the graph of the A, B, C work. That A work is very important for the project, and B work is effect property of time spent, and C work is very little importance. Distribution of the time spent for the managers. The first of all, where the manager should be working, and then this is like this. A is the way where is the manager usually too much working. क्या होता है ना, मैनेजर को क्या करना है, पहले पहले बहुत वर्क करना पड़ता है, लास्ट में कम। लेकिन मैनेजर क्या करता है, शुरू में कम काम करता है, लास्ट में जाकर ज़्यादा काम करता है. सो दिस इज द थिंग. So what is project controlling? So project controlling is basically the definition of this is involved within the control of execution of project to be able to answer the question, are we on target or are we on track? Are we going where we should go, and are we now where we should be? The changes in a project are a fact of life. It is human nature to try to improve things. However, changes are the project manager's greatest enemy because they change the project plan in terms of objectives, operations, resources. Therefore, it is necessary for project manager to control the changes that are being proposed to his project if he cannot derive them. So a good way to managing changes in the project is to be set up and change control procedure forms. This change control procedure will assure the changes are being reviewed by the project manager before they are implemented, and will enable to project manager to either veto or modify or control the changes. The changes control form should provide for entries on the project references, date of proposal, name and function on the who proposes the changes, and description of the proposed changes and the date by which the changes should be implemented, and rationales for the proposed changes, and expected impact of the changes on project objectives, project resources, project schedule, project cost, and approval signatures and dates, and change status is like that original, pending, approved, and the routing. And the progress measurement is basically the progress needs to be measured before the it is evaluated, and one should measure progress in terms of where we are now, where we are going, in terms of objectives and resources, scope, quality, schedule, cost are. That is, measuring progresses means the determining the status of the work accomplished to date in the terms and number of units procedure consumed, and progress percentage is like that is the ratio between the number of units produced or consumed and the budgeted number of units produced or consumed. Productivity is the number of units produced but consumed per man hour. That is performance actual productivity by the budgeted productivity. Okay. And the measuring progresses also means the determining the status of the work at completion forecasting, and based on status on the work accomplished to date, forecasting can be done to completion, how much production and consumption is forecasted till project completion, and at completion how much production and consumption is forecasted at project completion. And then the progress evaluation. So based on the progress measurement, one needs to evaluate progress in terms of are we on target and where we go compared to where we should go, are we on track where we are now compared to where we should be, and to analyze courses deviation in terms of objectives and resources. And progress evaluation should be documented in a project status report that should include tables and progress report and the graphs showing actual work progresses and forecasted progress. What is the corrective actions? So corrective actions basically the after project evaluation including analysis of the causes for deviation from the target, corrective actions have to be considered. Corrective actions means the changes in project objectives and the project resources, and some of the considered corrective actions may be more or less cost productive. It is a list basically the corrective actions of sequence of increasing cost and decreasing effects is given thereafter. And introduce more managerial attention on coordination, very effective and not costly at all. Reassign or reallocate resources, very effective and generally not costly. Reassign staff to the task for which they are most qualified, and reallocate staff that might be idle for the while. Overlap or redefine activities, very effective and generally not costly. If possible, overlap activities that were scheduled in sequence. Redefine activities that are on the critical path in more details to investigate if they can be shortened, and delay activities that are not on the critical part and they can be postponed. Example, documentation, effective and not costly but cannot be applied on activities on the critical path because this will be the influence of the targeted date. So what is the change technology? That change management I usually told that introduce more or advanced or modern technology that will speed up the production process effective, but it implies the higher cost in terms of capital investment and staff retraining, and this may also have influence on the target date due to time needed for delivery, installation, staff retraining. And subcontract activities, that is effective but implies higher cost and more work in terms of coordination and supervision. And add resources, basically effective but costly. Change target dated, that is basically the not effective as it only relaxes the project objectives and requires negotiation with all involved parties, that is levels. And change scope quality, that is basically not effective as it only relaxes the project objectives and the requires negotiation with all involved parties levels. What is the change management? And the generally not effective as new project manager will need time to get acquainted with the project and might not be motivated because he did not develop the project plan. A new project manager may also be willing to introduce several in the project plan that will delay target dates. So change organization structure, what is change? That is a needs to be introduced with much care because it can very disruptive for ongoing project activities. So those are the things I discussed today. So project management का total तो मैं बता चुका हूँ आज, and everything I have discussed. So क्या होगा ना, मैं सबको रिक्वेस्ट करूँगा, थैंक्स फॉर द वाचिंग दिस वीडियो एंड प्लीज़ लाइक शेयर कमेंट एंड सब्सक्राइब टू माय चैनल। एंड इस चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करो, इस चैनल को देखते रहो, तो आपको बहुत बड़ा बड़ा सेशन मिलेगा यहाँ पर। तो प्लीज़ गो अहेड, एंड क्या होगा ना, कुछ प्रॉब्लम होगा तो कमेंट बॉक्स में मेरा जो है उसमें बताओ, डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में फॉलो करो, उसमें बहुत सारा पुराना जो लेक्चर है उसमें मैं दे रहता हूँ। और जो कम्युनिटी जो पोस्टर जो है वहाँ पर देखते रहो, यू विल गेट सेवरल थिंग्स, एंड इफ़ यू नो इन डिटेल्स, और अगर आपको ज़्यादा चाहिए तो प्लीज़ सेंड एन ईमेल टू mba2j@gmail.com। ओके, द डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में आपको दिया हुआ है वो जो ईमेल आईडी, दैट इज़ mba2jinquiry inquiry@gmail.com। तो वहाँ पर जाकर मेल कर सकते हो, तो वहाँ से रिप्लाई चला जाएगा आपके पास, ठीक है। सो प्लीज़ थैंक यू फॉर वाचिंग, एंड प्लीज़ लाइक शेयर कमेंट एंड सब्सक्राइब टू माय चैनल, एंड डोंट फॉरगेट टू हिट द bell icon, and you will get lot of interactive session and this type of session in future also. So please subscribe to my channel. Thank you.